fair enough. Or you can just go to the MriyaReport Twitter feed, and you can search for Spotify there.
Yeah, we link it a lot. Let's be honest. Go ahead, Tillman. Back to you.
No, I wanna hear from Antti. What is it? What is the dynamic, Antti, with Finns, right? Because the first time we've had General Pekkatoveri with us, it was amazing. The second time, even more amazing. Are we expecting, or should we be expecting, an even more excellent and even more informative and even more insightful appearance the third time around, Antti?
Yes.
Antti needs to buy some more books. I have some recommendations, actually.
Yeah, I actually have a question for Christian. So yeah, so I believe yesterday there was a strategic partnership agreement signed between Romania and Georgia. Could you open that up, unpack it for us a bit? How significant is this?
Well, as in any strategic agreement, basically, let me just get up to it. Oh, the thing is, as any strategic agreement, this one was signed on specific domains. For example, transport, energy, interconnectivity, but also personal contacts, like much more upfront contact with the Georgian Republic. Most strategic partnerships include defensive agreements between countries, like in case of war. But this, from what I'm seeing, is not the case right now. But this is mostly important because for Georgia, because we try to cooperate and to put them up in front on the NATO and European Union agendas. So we support them on both of these subjects. But there's gonna be some partnership in the security domain as well. So this is important. This is a historic agreement, to be honest. This is what I know about it until now.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Antti and Christian. So we got a couple hands up. I believe Katig was next. Go ahead, Katig.
Hi, do you hear me?
Yep. Is it Katig G or Katig?
Katig.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I just wanted to. I sent a direct message to Doran, but I don't think he had the time to see it yet, and I thought it was important news. The pipeline, a Polish pipeline, has like that delivers crude oil to Germany, has a major leak. And I don't know if it's.
Wait, did you say the Norway to Poland one?
No. Through Poland.
The one that goes from Russia to Belarus to Poland to Germany.
One, I think it's 2 pipelines, and one of them has a leak, and it's closed off now. It's crude oil, if
Right.
I understand.
Yes, yeah. It's the Druzhba. Sorry, I checked your DM now. Sorry, as you rightly surmised, I did not see it. Yes, it is the Druzhba pipeline. The Druzhba pipeline. There are 2 branches of it. There's the Polish branch. There's the let's say the Ukrainian, Czech, Slovak, Hungarian branch, and there's the Polish one that seems to have a depressurization. Interesting, because that oil pipeline supplies 3 refineries, if I remember correctly, in the east of Germany, in Brandenburg, in Sachsen-Anhalt, and I think Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. And my understanding was that the plan for that one was to instead use the branch that goes from one of the Polish ports, I forget which one, maybe Gdansk, maybe Świnoujście, to deliver oil there by tanker, and then push it down to the old Druzhba pipeline, and then on to Germany. That would satiate the need for crude oil for those refineries, for feedstock for those refineries. But I'm guessing that it was still being used to actually transit Russian oil. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened. And that is very interesting indeed. Thank you very much, Katik. Should I stress this? Yeah, maybe. Ironically enough, the French fuel truck drivers, tanker truck drivers, went on strike late last week. So there is a refined product shortage, that's petrol and diesel, left to sell. And it's plausible that for very different reasons, something very different might now happen in Eastern Germany, even though that was supposed to have been averted since April. And I am surprised that that plan didn't go through. I remember when Robert Habeck, the German economy minister, was quite happy to say that we are no longer dependent on Russian oil. So why the hell was there a problem in that pipeline, if the illustration is correct? Unless it's they already switched, and then that's fine. Someone else might know that. I don't. Thank you, Katik.
I have just one question, because it's on, if it's Russia again, hypothetically, that is on Polish territory, right? So wouldn't this be different than the Nord Stream pipeline?
It would be, however, it's not. I will refrain from commenting until I've read more into it, because it could be that it's a much more minor event and much less catastrophic, and much more, oh, okay, well, this will take 10 hours to fix, and then it's fine.
Gentlemen, I'm calling the Article 5 hotline right now. I've got him on the line.
NAFO.
I'm just kidding.
You can call Article 5 NAFO whenever, Joseph. You know the rules.
Well, Delvin, I do have one more announcement. If you wanted like a hot minute to look at this real quick, did you want that?
Can we go? Let's go to Kathy. Do you have anything else? I don't want to keep you waiting unnecessarily.
Oh, no, but I'm going to keep on listening. So if it's something, DM me or something. I'll listen to updates about it.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joseph, let's go to Stephen. Oh, where did Stephen go? Well, Joseph, I guess our only way forward is to go.
Well. Looks like you need me after all, huh? Doman? No, I'm just kidding, buddy. Yeah, no problem. So yeah, Doman, look at that pipeline thing. So I just want to talk to our audience real quick. So as you guys know, yesterday we were supposed to have Matthew Van Dyke on the program. Awesome guy. First off, we just want to say about Matthew Van Dyke, he's been a very nice, generous, polite person to us in terms of our interactions with him, and just seems, in terms of like what I've read about him, seems like a really awesome human being. So want to say that we had a scheduled interview with him yesterday. We didn't hear from him at the time. We were just kind of like, where's Matthew? We didn't heard from Matthew. Doma didn't hear from him, so we kind of waited, and then he sent us a very polite message, just saying, hey, I'm in Kyiv. The recent missile attacks were a problem for our internet access and electricity and so forth. So please, when we can, we'll reschedule the interview as soon as possible. And he apologized to all of you. He said, I'm so sorry, all of you, that I, had a scheduled time and I missed it. So I just wanted to let everyone know that he's going to be here Thursday, October 13th. So obviously this coming Thursday, tomorrow, at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So that'll be New York time, 2 p.m. we're looking forward to talking to him. We're so sorry we missed him last time, but obviously it was a set of circumstances, and I think that he handled it with like, so I don't know, it was just so polite of him considering what happened, right? I mean, there were missile strikes that destroyed vital infrastructure. Like we totally understand, right? But he was so polite about it. So looking very much forward to that interview. So with that, Doman, I hope I bought you enough time there, buddy. But we are definitely looking forward to that interview for real. Once more, that is 2 p.m. Eastern time, and that's tomorrow, Thursday, October 13th, that we rescheduled that interview with Matthew Van Dyke. He's currently training soldiers. He's part of the Sons of Liberty International. He's the founder, I should say, and they're in Ukraine training forces right now to fight Russia. So back to you, Doman.
Well, thank you, Joseph. I just want to say, if people missed what time that is, it is the same time as it would have been yesterday. So, if you're all geared up to want to listen to Matthew's interview yesterday, well, it's the same time, but it's tomorrow instead of yesterday. But the same time of day, assuming you're not changing time zones, and then honestly, it's your fault.
Then you got a DM Doman. Just kidding.
Please don't.
You ever gotten a DM like that? I started doing that, where people are like, I'm going from here to here. What time is this guest?
No comment. All I'll say is I'm really glad that both Kosovo and Serbia are in the same time zone.
Okay, Doman, is there any further information you were able to dig up on this pipeline? You still looking, or do you
Give me like
not
2
really
minutes.
see anything else? Yeah, okay, still working on, no problem. Just checking with you, buddy. Christian, go ahead.
I just want to go back to the Romanian-Georgian partnership. I've done a little more digging up, and it seems that Romania and Georgia will have an underwater fiber optic cable and an interconnectivity on electricity between Romania and Georgia through the Black Sea, which will basically connect Azerbaijan and the Caspian Sea to Romania and from then on to other countries. So this is a really important development.
Yeah, definitely. And real quick, Christian, I wanted to add that there've been a few developments in Georgia, right? I think we've all seen, or maybe not all of us, but they're on Twitter lately. There have been some great photos because around Europe and a little bit in the United States as well, and also specifically Georgia, though, there have been big protest demonstrations, whatever you want to call them, against the Russian aggression in Ukraine. Particularly this most recent campaign of terror that they've launched against Ukrainian power and infrastructure, right? And of course, hitting crowded intersections with missiles. There have been some demonstrations in Georgia. There have been some photos of some graffiti from the demonstrations and things that have been going around. In addition to that, Georgia has gotten some NATO infantry fighting vehicles. I forget from which country. Do you happen to know, Doman or Christian, either of you, which ones they've ordered? Yep, no big deal. Anyway, I heard they were buying some. So anyway, and then last thing is you just mentioned there's like a new partnership with Romania that I've been hearing a little bit about. So we are trying to get, or I'm trying to get Salome back on the program, who we talked to a little bit before. Maybe she can update us on that. Yeah, she's sick. So she told me when she's feeling better, she'll be on. So hopefully she'll be feeling better soon. I can get her on relatively recent to the current events. And she can maybe just give us a sense of like if she knows anyone who attended the protests and so forth, or the demonstrations, and if any kind of updates on what's going on in Georgia and how it might affect the Russian invasion of Ukraine, more or less. So with that, I'll go to Auntie. Auntie, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Christian, for that follow-up. I'm curious, wouldn't that also necessitate Romania to invest more in its navy as well, because that would also bring a key piece of infrastructure that would need a measure of protection as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's an ongoing process. Basically, we already have signed some contracts on this, on some corvettes, but it's been bogged down in the last couple of years. Well, at least that was the status when I worked at the National Defense and Security Commission in the Romanian Parliament. Basically, Fincantieri won the contract, but Naval Group from France sued for this, and it's basically a bit bogged down. But I know that more things will come on this, and you're absolutely right. They have to be protected, and it's an absolute shame that Romania has such a small fleet compared to its shore size and its size as a country as a whole. So we need more investment in the naval part of our country, but it's going to take a lot of time, and it won't be done in not even in 10 years, to be honest, to pose a real threat on, or depending on what role Romania wants to have into the Black Sea. So we can't compare, for example, with the Greeks, well, not the Black Sea, but still with the Greeks or the Turks, which have the largest fleet in the Black Sea. And I don't think we can compare with them to compete with them on this.
Yes, but it's a good secondary effect that there's going to be a bit more pressure to put more effort into it.
Absolutely, absolutely. For example, there's a law in Romania that was passed a couple of years ago that necessitates offset on any contract, on any military contract that Romania does. For example, F-16s or F-35s, and so on and so on and so on. But on this, in this subject, there's a problem, because the Russians are not gonna wait for you to negotiate the offset. They're not gonna wait for you to do all these bureaucratic things. So a lot of future projects will necessitate more urgency, and on this, I think that, I'm not sure, I don't know, but I think, in my opinion, or maybe as an opinion as a national security advisor, is that it should basically skip in cases, or at least until now, skip some offset conditions on the vital parts of it, but and wherever it doesn't need to skip, it won't skip. But on some things, like vital things, it needs to skip on the offset conditions. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Christian. Auntie, did you have anything you wanted to close that out with? Go ahead.
No, just to say thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Good discussion. I feel like we're sort of like like the audience is the teacher, and we're like students in the class, and we're distracting the teacher, i.e., the audience, while Doman writes an essay on this pipeline. So real quick, I did want to say to our audience, if you want to, please do feel free. You can come up, you can press the microphone in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. I will say, Doman is a genius, and Tim is an evil genius. So, please do come up, and if you have any questions, I feel that they would be equipped to answer you. I think you're in capable hands, especially with Doman and Tim. So, press that microphone button in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. When you get up here, you press the little heart icon. On the far right-hand side of your screen, you raise your hand. Simple as that. We'll call on you in order. It's quite easy. Doman, I bought as much time for you as I can, my friend. Go ahead.
Thank you, Joseph. I was sorting out some guest situation at the same time, to finalize the card.
Tim's ready to buy a little more for you if you want to work on the
but
pipeline.
I have the explanation. Okay, so late last night, it's morning in Europe now, so let's about 12 hours ago, give or take. There was a leak detected on one of the two lines, as Katik correctly said, of the part of the pipeline that goes through Poland. It's about 70 kilometers from the town of Płock. And now I would like to ask some Polish people to tell me how badly I mispronounced the town of Płock. I think I got it roughly correct. Polish is hard.
I feel like
so
I feel like you should have said more consonants.
no, it's a very short name.
To me, Polish is like you have to suppress every instinct to say the letter that you read. That's like Polish for me.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the orthography. I could fix that in like an afternoon. Seriously, Polish Academy of Sciences and Literature and whatever, hit me up. I'll fix that for you. Okay, so yes, one of the two.
He's not even
pipelines
joking.
leaked.
Sorry, Doma, go ahead.
I am not joking. I am definitely not joking. So one of the two is down. However, the Pomeranian section that brings crude oil, I almost said wine, that brings crude oil from the Baltic Sea terminals down to the western bit of the pipeline and onto Germany and Polish refineries. That is fine. And my understanding is that there has been much less oil flowing from Russia to Germany already anyway. I might be wrong on that one. I think I'm right, though. And that's good enough for now. So that's going to be fixed up, tidied up. I would suggest that it won't be too bad of an outage. It looks like, judging by their press release, it looks like the sort of thing that they're like, okay, well, I guess we'll go and fix that, rather than, oh my God, no, this is a, environmental disaster of the first order kind of situation and an energy problem for the long run. It's probably going to take like a few days.
So it's like how many leaks a year, type deal. In other words, like this is something that might happen once in a while, and it's probably just a typical industrial thing. Doman, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. Pipelines
There you
have
go.
leaks. It's a thing.
All right, I'll call NATO and tell them Article 5 canceled for now. But if the situation changes, Doman, you let me know. All right.
I will. I'll call you. I will get you out of sleep, and we will address that as need be.
We'll deposit, isn't that? That's a word I learned from Doman yesterday. We're the depository nation. Someone will come deposit to us. Is that right?
No, that's not how it works. No. That's for treaty amendments. That's not for actions done within the treaty. That's for amendments to the treaty, such as accession of new member states. That's where that's what you have to deposit. For example, ratification of membership is something you have to deposit.
And
new states like Ukraine, Doman?
Well, it wouldn't be Ukraine depositing it, right? It would have to be all the other member states depositing their ratification of it.
And
it's not that complicated.
It's not to be confused with the suppository nation, which is something quite different.
No, it's more of a Russian thing.
Okay, well, I love talking about
I
pipelines. Oh, Axel, yes, please posit.
May I posit that there is enough of depository, suppository, and all this posing about pository. Let's move.
So, Axel, is there maybe we haven't been talking about the military situation, I'll say, in a few hours. Is there anything maybe you want to say about the military situation in Ukraine, just broadly?
Yeah, in about half an hour.
Yeah, no worries, buddy. Just checking.
I have
for our
something
audience.
to
Go
say
ahead, Doman.
about the military situation in Ukraine. 2 days ago, we heard about big booms at Melitopol. Yesterday, we heard about big booms around Melitopol. Today, guess what we heard about?
Big booms in Kherson.
No, Melitopol and Tokmak.
Oh.
Yeah. I would suggest there's something afoot, and the something is, Ukraine getting rid of whatever the Russians managed to deliver to southern Ukraine before the Kerch Bridge was made less than operable, and they're kind of clearing house before they might do something else, such as take back the house. Tim?
Yeah, I was going to say that something I've noticed about the kind of that kind of Zaporizhia southwards corridor. There's not very much information about going around about what Ukraine doing there, and that makes me go, I go to my usual sources of military development updates, and they don't really say anything about that kind of middle slice, and it makes me think, people aren't releasing information about that middle slice, which makes me go, Does that make sense?
I
Is that
agree
too
with you.
vague?
I think I agree with you, Tim. So I would say broadly, like the last thing we've heard a few things about it, but the one thing I've heard relatively recently was there was some buzz on the RU side, the Russian side, of like sort of like a buildup of troops in that area. Obviously, as Doman said, there have been lots of booms in Melitopol. That's like, I wouldn't say it's not to be unremarked upon. It's so common, but it is not unusual. I'll put it that way. It's not like the craziest thing in the world. So there's definitely stuff going on down there, as Tim said. We don't know a ton about it. I think we're still waiting to see, but it wouldn't be completely crazy if something happened down there. At least something like in Kherson. I don't know. You might see something slow, methodical, careful. They clearly have been putting some effort to degrade Russian forces in that area to make a move. I think it's just a question of like, when will they make the move? I think a lot of people think they'll probably sew up the southern direction first, but I think that's just sort of speculation, broadly speaking. Tim, any thoughts?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, given the relative lack of chatter coming out of the lack of information coming out of the typical watchers on the Ukrainian side about that whole AO, and the fact that it is really their only viable logistical route to the west now, just makes me think that there might be something brewing down there on the Ukrainian side. But nobody seems to be talking about it, which makes me doubly suspicious. But I guess we'll see.
Yep, we'll be ready to be pleasantly surprised, I think, sooner or later. But we'll see, as you said. Christopher, go ahead.
Good morning. At least it's very much morning where I am. Can you all hear me? Mic check.
Yeah, Christopher. Who are you taking to the airport?
Oh my goodness! Are you? You know what? You should play the lottery because I'm taking me to the airport.
There are only so many reasons for someone to be up at 3 a.m., Christopher.
Well, I mean, you could be left over from the night before, but in my case, that's not happening.
You sound too sober.
Yeah,
sorry to say.
No. Thank you kindly. It's been a long journey. So
talking to the master spy that blew up the Kerch Bridge, Christopher. Show some respect. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. I genuflect in your presence, gentlemen. I wanted to ask. I didn't get a chance to the other day, but on these tanks, I don't know if I'm changing the subject, if that's cool, but I'm not exactly sure where you guys are because it is a little early for me. But on the tank options that are available to Ukraine, Leopards included, does anybody have a sense of what their logistics tails are? And I'm curious more about like which tanks cost. Spotted. That's good. I watched a couple of YouTube footages of them, and they're very, very, very sexy. They do jump around much like a leopard. But how much does anybody have a sense of the cost of maintaining each one of the varieties that we've been speaking of that could possibly, get to Ukraine, including the French eclairs?
Did you say eclairs or l'éclairs? It's a different thing.
Well,
éclair is something market in France.
Yes.
Also a
yeah.
general. I don't know which one the tank's named after. I think the general, but there's always the off chance.
No,
No,
there's the Abraham tank and the Eclair tank, and I don't know. We got to find a fun name for the other one. Sorry, the Leopards. I don't know, the Jaguar tank. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I that's those are all perfect. But it occurred to me that there was obviously an expense to running these things. And a sort of set of parts that would normally wear out. And then what would that supply chain look like in terms of its cost? Which one of these would be, kind of the better one for anyone, for that matter, in terms of their sort of supply chain cost? I'm just curious. It's just something I was trying to think about, like, why would we choose the Leopard? Obviously, for some people, that would be an easy choice. Others,
So, Christopher,
Mhm.
I have an answer for you.
Okay.
My answer will be: look, you have a flight ahead of you. I hope it's a long one, because on Sunday we had Thomas Tyner with us, and we spoke to him for like 3 hours, right? 2 hours 50, whatever the podcast episode length is. Go download that before you get on the plane, so you can listen to it while in flight without having to pay for the really expensive, very spotty Wi-Fi. Listen to that. There's a nice 15-minute segment in that goes into detail why Leopards are the only non-Abrams option. And Thomas is an expert on these things, unlike myself. I mean, Joseph is, but it's later he is and he's tired, right? So otherwise he'd explain it. It's to do with availability, numbers, manufacturing capacity, including for spare parts, and just they're very well suited for the job. So that's the short.
I think the bottom line, Domin, is like Leopards would probably be the best option. I think it's more of like a political question, right? We need to get some kind of NATO tank in. So if it's got to be Abrams, it's got to be Abrams. But if just like the question was, can we get it just on paper, which is the best? Probably Leopards. Sorry, back to you.
Exactly. And Christopher, I can tell you that the interview with Thomas has only been up for like 2 days. It's the most popular interview on our Spotify feed for anyone who isn't a general or wasn't a general, either way. So that tells you something about how great of an interview it is. Covered all sorts of stuff, including the bridge. Except I have to say, as Joseph unwittingly revealed just a little bit ago, he did get the reason why the bridge came down wrong. But he didn't know at the time what Joseph knows about the cover story. There you go.
Well, that's excellent. I shall take that advice. I heard just a little bit of that interview, caught a bit of it, and now I guess we'll catch up the full thing. And if I could, one more quick comment.
Certainly.
Okay. And this one is for Axel. It might warm his cockles. I have this class this semester in military simulation and gaming. But we're reading some background information, and so our readings for this week include the Battle of Somme. I'm sure I'm butchering that. In 1915-16, the Allies against the Germans, and what a complete rout that was. But so I've been reading, and I'm reading it with Axel's accent in my head. So I thought he would be appreciated. This guy named Keegan is one of the, and there's another guy named Biddle that wrote also sort of about the Operation Michael. Anyway, those are I just had Axel in my head, and I wanted to let him know that it's I'm thinking very fondly of him.
Keegan is a fantastic illustrator and decoder of battle. I still recommend The Face of Battle to everyone, both for style as well as insight and clarity.
Yes, that's actually where this passage is from. It's it is really poet. He really places himself and does a really great job of doing a lot of almost first person narration in the third person, if there was a way to say that. But I just wanted to let you know I've been thinking of you because we're working on that section. Anyway, guys, I'm going to get ready. It's not quite a long flight. It's to South Dakota, going to a conference for.
You just have to start either listen to the podcast in like 1.2 times speed, or which is fine, or you can just start listening to it while still in the terminal.
Well, no, but then I'll miss all of this. So I'm gonna defer to get to all of the live before I can get to the recorded. But anyway, guys, thank you very much, and please tweet and retweet the space, and if you have the ability and the capacity, please give to Maria aid. As Ron Popeil says, it's easy to set it and forget it. Do that reoccurring $5 a month, and you won't have to worry about it. Thanks all, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
So, Devin, I believe Bionade is next, but I know Katig was Katig was keeping us appraised on the situation. So I'll leave it to you.
Katig, do you have more on the pipeline?
No, it was something totally different. So I can wait.
All right, thank you, Katig. Let's go to Bionade, and then to Katig, and then to Jörn. Bionade.
Oh, you already talked about the pipeline?
A little bit. I can give you a quick summary. Basically, there is a leak on one of the two pipelines that lead from Russia to Belarus through Poland onto Germany, near the central Polish town of Płock. Somebody tell me how close I got this. Płock, I think. Again, Polish orthography, hard. So one of the two pipelines sprung a leak. This does not affect the Pomeranian branch that brings oil from the Baltic seaports down to the pipeline and onto Germany, and as well as Polish refineries. So that's good to know. So actual capacity isn't that much constrained as it would have been previously before there were these many more tankers headed to the Baltic seaports in Poland. So it is what it is. Bionade, do you know anything about how bad it is? Reading the press release, it looks like more like we have to spend a few days working on it now, as opposed to, oh my God, half of Poland is flooded in crude oil now, kind of situation. I think, it looks very minor.
Yeah, I think the Druzhba pipeline isn't even that big. Sounds like a minor incident which got blown up by the press because of the related topics. But but somehow funny how many incidents we have on pipelines in the last few days. So yeah.
Well, there we go. Thank you, thank you, Bionade. Let's jump back to Katig.
I think Jörn was before me.
All right, Jörn.
Thank you. Just two comments. First, the Zaporizhzhia front. Wouldn't it make sense, if they're going to open a third offensive there, to wait until the Kherson front collapses and then create chaos on the south side and panics on the south side of the Dnieper River as well? And maybe really rout the Russians so that they could have a chance of getting an entrance into the Crimea. And the other comment is, if it's between the Leo 2 and the Abrams, why aren't the Germans taking a good deal? Because it's evident that Ukraine is winning, so this war will end, and they will probably have one main battle tank on the side of whatever they will produce themselves afterwards. And I would think that supplying the largest land army in Europe post-war would be a good deal for the industry of either Germany or the US. Why aren't they taking the deal?
I think that's good thinking on the latter point, right? I think that's really good thinking. I would suggest that the Swedes haven't sent the Jersey yet either, which would be a good deal for them as well. Like Thomas Tyner said, and I'm not spoiling too much for Christopher here. It would really prove them in combat as well, and that would be very valuable in the long run there. Beyond that, I want to briefly note on the Zaporizhzhia question. I would think that it makes sense for the Ukrainians to trap lots of Russians on the right bank of the Dnieper, and then, cut off their route back across to defend Zaporizhzhia, and that would possibly give them an easier job. Maybe I'm overthinking it to 4D chess, but I'm not so sure that it's as straightforward as you presented. I'm sure that Tim or Axel or Antti or someone else might want to jump in on that one, but or not. In which case, we'll go to Katik, and then we'll return to Zaporizhia sometime very soon indeed.
Mic check.
Loud and clear.
Okay. I forgot about this, but this is something I've been thinking about, and I just randomly saw that something about the whole issue with winter uniforms, and I'm thinking, and the lack of it for the Ukrainian troops. I saw that apparently the Nordic countries, so Finland, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, are order their uniform together, and they just made a deal earlier this year with a Norwegian company for new uniforms, and I'm guessing it's including winter uniforms. So they will be phasing out their old stuff, and I know it says that they're supposed to start delivering it in 2024, but I'm thinking that maybe, I don't know, because I'm asking you this now because I saw that there's a lot of Nordic people here, and also Axel, I know that you do finance things, and I'm really bad at this stuff. But I'm thinking, is there like a possibility that it would be cheaper or cost efficient to maybe use some of the money that the Nordics plan on spending on money for Ukraine to maybe speed up the production so that our winter clothes, that's obviously still good for a couple of years, can be delivered for Ukrainian troops, at least some of it. And if that's not working, I saw because they have some website about this whole deal, that at least 400 soldiers in these 4 countries have been testing some of these uniforms for 6 months. So that's at least 400 uniform kits, kind of, that maybe would be able to be sent to Ukraine. And that's just 400, but if I'm just trying to like find,
So my understanding is that actually a lot of the Nordic states have been buying new stuff for Ukraine that's been freshly manufactured already. So I get your logic. I like your logic. But I think we have 2 Norwegians who will try to explain whether that's a good idea or not, and are much better informed on it than I am. But my understanding is that there's already being straight new stuff just being sent to Ukraine anyway, by various Nordic countries. Jørn, do you know more about this?
Well, I can tell you how winter camouflage works. It's actually a very, very thin white camouflage that you put outside of your uniform. And it's very easy to produce. It's cheap and it's mass produced. And we have NATO storages of those all over the place. And I know that several 100,000 has been sent to the Ukraine already. I know that it's sent more through private initiatives and stuff. So I'm not worried about winter camouflage. If they have warm enough gear to have underneath, that's the question. And I think they will have, and they're used to the Ukrainian winter themselves. So winter gear is not very high on my list of worries. And I think they will be much better equipped, much better trained, and much better disciplined to handle the winter warfare than their Russian counterparts.
Thank you, Jørn. So basically what you're saying is that what the Nordics are buying is is new camo. They're not buying new clothes altogether. So the warm clothes that you wear under the camo are staying the same. It's just the outside that's okay. Thank you, Jørn. Alan.
Can I just
Katik,
because that's what I was worried about, like specifically there's like more Russian troops coming in, and I mean, stuff gets ruined because of shelling and whatever. I mean, they need a lot of it, like huge amounts of uniforms, and it's cold in the trenches. So they need professional stuff instead of like buying stuff of, I don't know, from H&M and stuff like.
So I have no worries about that at all, because there have been statements from a number of Western nations, Nordics, Canada, US, some others as well, about providing warm winter clothes for the Ukrainian soldiers. And there have been a lot of hints of, so we're sending one batch now, and then we're sending another big batch later, and we're ordering new stuff on top of that, and there's more to come after that, and there's more to come. Hey, Ukraine will be, I wouldn't say swimming in winter kit, but they will be thoroughly well kitted out. I am absolutely sure of that. It is one of those things that's really a non-issue, even for the most pacifist people in whatever electorate. Sending warm clothes is the least of a hot button topic as well, and it's just such a basic, sensible thing to do. That especially, right, all the Nordic militaries and the Canadians and many others as well, of course, are very well attuned to and understand so very well how important it is to keep your soldiers, warm in the winter. So I don't worry about it just because of that.
It is a good and important topic. The good thing
Absolutely.
The good thing is that both the Nordic countries, as well as those who regularly practice winter warfare, such as the Germans and the Italians just as well, and our American friends, have been providing already. So that's the key aspect. This is fortunately one thing where everybody in NATO has agreed, and manufacturing has already been long activated for that matter. So good point, but fortunately covered. Key thing is focus on the weapons, focus on the release of Leopards. But then again,
snow leopards.
We will know later today.
Okay.
Whether some of this has been successful, because they are sitting together yet again. They are Rammsteining.
Okay, because I was worried because I've seen so many posts about winter clothing, but that's good to know. So thank you.
I think they're constant. Oh, go ahead, Doman.
It's very like a lot has been sent, a lot more will be sent, and a lot more will be sent on top of that. It's the one, like, it doesn't get publicized as much as well, but it really will. Joseph, thoughts, then Alan, then Chris, then Andre.
Yeah, just very quickly, I was going to add, Constantine put up a pretty good thread that's like, what is the standard issue winter gear, and like, what would be some good supplemental stuff? I know he helped out some of his guys with some basic stuff. As Doman said, I think a lot of it's going, but I will just add one more thing, which is occasionally I do see companies, like private companies, donating, good wool stuff or good winter gear to Ukraine. And I always try to, retweet, give a shout out to them. So I would just say to our audience, like, if you ever see companies donating, winter gear or anything else, do give them a shout out. Do let them know you support what they're doing and so forth, because we want to encourage that behavior. So back to you, Doman.
Yeah, some positive reinforcement, right? Alan.
Mic check.
You good?
Yeah. Okay. Was it Kati?
Yes.
Yeah. You talked about the joint production of uniforms between the Nordic countries, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is that the Ukrainian army, they have their own military uniform with their camouflage pattern. They have the production of that sorted out. I believe European countries and the US are helping them with the manufacturing of that, and they do it in-house as well. They have a pretty good outer layer uniform. The problem they had was the woolen layers and all those things. This stuff is actually not abundant on the market, so it wasn't easy for them to provide it. That has fortunately, as many people pointed out, been sorted out. And it's very, very good that everyone pushed for it, because I think it wouldn't have been, in the politicians' first mind when they decided what to send if it wasn't brought up to the light as it was. when it comes to the joint uniform production between Sweden, Norway, and I believe Finland, it is like it wouldn't be able to help the Ukrainian army with that, because that's a production line of a standardized uniform, but with different camouflage patterns: the Finnish, the Swedish, and the Norwegian camouflage patterns. And it wouldn't be able to just turn around that production line for the Ukrainian camouflage patterns. So it's been like in the brewing for 15 years. Production of the uniforms, but very similar uniforms when it comes to the practical sense of it. So yeah, that's the short, long answer to why there is a production of uniforms that are common between the Nordic countries.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. Yeah, I was thinking specifically about the under layer, like the wool clothing, because I saw it on the website that they are providing those as well. So that was I was thinking about, not specifically the camouflage, because obviously Ukrainians can't use ours. So
yeah, I believe the underlayers are partially joint production, or will be, but what we're sending is what we already had. So, and we, at least in Norway, we had abundance of the layers. I think in the tens of thousands of kits that are going to be sent, and also we have extra in storage. So I don't know about the Swedish and Finns, but I know they also sent layers. But that's old production line. That's what we had the last 10 years. So it's not of the new production line.
And just a note, right? That more is actually being ordered new for Ukraine. There is new stuff that is being manufactured because of the extra need, and there's a large number of orders from various countries that is specifically being done for that. All right. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Katik.
thank you, everyone.
Let's go on to Chris. Morning, Chris.
Good morning, Dermot. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Good. Well, just on the subject of clothes, the Malamutes are shedding their fur as fast as possible so that Malamute sockses can be made quickly. But Tibbs was off on this theme of things that make you go, And you won't have had time to see it yet, but I put a little article in your DM about trains. So when you have a quiet moment, I know you like to talk about trains. These are Russian trains. And sadly for the Russians, they had to pull off 20,000 of their rolling stock.
Is it for a lack of ball bearings?
It is for a lack of ball bearings.
And I have not had time to read the article yet, but I had a hunch of where this was going. And it was going downhill, but not very fast, because there was too much rolling friction.
So apparently over the next, so in September, October, that's planned to double. Now, if one assumes that it's going to double every 2 months or something like that, that means an awful lot of rolling stock is going to get pulled off the lines, doesn't it?
Yeah, rolling stock is no good if it's not rolling.
Exactly.
It's almost like it doesn't matter that the Kerch Bridge was taken out, because what are they going to take across it anyway soon?
Well, there was this discussion yesterday. I can't remember when. You know, I had loads of meetings on that yesterday, so I'm just dipping in and dipping out. But I think it was actually, I think it was Colonel Jeff, wasn't it, that was talking about that he went to the University of Logistics. Something about if you want to know how to win a war, you first of all go to another university where they teach you about war strategy. But the real answer is in the university that he went to, which is the University of Logistics, whereby
something along the lines of there being two two branches, right?
Yeah.
One of them is for the first 72 hours, and the other one is for sustainment and logistics, etc.
Well, yes, but the gist of it was, if you hit the logistics, that's going to end the war.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've been preaching this here for who knows how long, right? With Craig especially going on about it and on and on and on, and people thinking he's weird talking about trains all the time, but he's not. He's doing the sensible thing. It's one thing to hit all the Russian troops in the field, but right, and you're right, it was Colonel Jeff, and he was referencing some papers from back in the university days. But if the Russians have nothing to shoot with, then they're not doing much anyway. So that's priorities. You're quite right.
Yes, well, of course, I know it's been mentioned before. I just like to mention it again, So that's good. And then my final point is that this morning there was discussion about countries that know exactly what the Russians are like because they've been invaded by them before and atrocities have been committed on them before. And this reminds me of my own Welsh family who used to tell stories about their time in the Donbass when they helped build the coal, iron and steel industry in the Donbass and then got thrown out by the Russians. So that gave me an excuse to post that up on LinkedIn as well today.
Love it, Chris. Can you send me a link to that one? I'd love to read that.
It is a very interesting story, actually, Dermot. I will send you that as well in a minute. I've got a meeting in 5 minutes, but after that, I'll send it to you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All the
Thank
best.
you, Chris. All about Khrushchevka. Joseph.
So it's about my bedtime, guys. But Axel, are you there? I did have a question for you.
Sure, shoot.
Awesome. So I've heard Doman is so excited. He's like a kid on Christmas that we're going to be talking to the CEO of Ukropochta. So I'm looking forward to it. But he's told me that's the only interview. But he's told me that's the only interview he'll be attending. So I assume you'll be speaking again with Pekka Toveri, and that'll be in about 8 hours at the top of the hour. So that'll be 12 p.m. Pacific time. Former defense intelligence chief of Finnish Defense Forces. So you'll be talking to Pekka Toveri, and also I assume Justin Yao, who's going to be an hour and a half later. Go ahead.
Yeah, I spoke to both, and that's why we packed it up. Justin and I wanted to follow up on what we discussed yesterday with Caleb, and he was posting a number of videos and photos at that time. And I thought it's worthwhile to go through his experience and how he has followed matters on site, given the fact that he's a visual person, which although we do radio here, I think he can capture a few things which supplement and complement what our friend Caleb has already said. And Pekka Toveri, obviously, this is on the day of Ramstein. And looking back at the terror bombing campaign by the Russians, plus the Kerch Bridge impact and Ilovaisk, I thought it's worthwhile having a more, say, strategic and incisive discussion, which Pekka is always good for. So we'll do this tonight.
Yeah, so I think it's maybe you and Tim, or I know you're doing the interview, of course. So I'll say you've got two great interviews ahead of you. Pekka Toveri again, he's always a great guest to have on, and Justin, I believe he's been on the program before at some point. Anyway, he's, as you said, good. Yes, yeah. So he's also been a great guest, and we're very glad to have him back. And so once again, for our audience, at the top of the hour, that'll be in 8 hours. So 12 p.m. Pacific will be Pekka Toveri, and then 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. I was doing my time. 1:30 p.m. Eastern time will be Justin Yao, and that again is 9.5 hours at the top of the hour. So looking forward to both of those guests. I'm going to hand it over to Europe. Good luck, boys. We'll see you on the other side. and Slava Ukraini.
Herom
See you
Slava.
on the flip side.
All right. Andre.
Yes. Hi. Hi, everybody. I have sort of a take and a question because I'm not hearing this take enough, and it is personally perplexing for me. And please tell me if this is like off topic. So I understand that the conventional battleground is critically important, and Ukraine will win. I'm sure it's going to get all the winter gear and all the like aerial defense and like tanks and whatnot. But the problem is, in my opinion, that this is like not enough, and I'm surprised that this is not being discussed enough. So not imagine, like Ukrainian military will take over all of the Ukrainian territory, will regain control of Crimea, everything, right? But that's not going to end the war because Russia is fighting as a terrorist force. Essentially, it's like a terrorist organization with state level capability, with a major state level capabilities. So they are terrorizing the civilian population with long range weapons. And no matter what you do with tanks on the battlefield, no matter how bravely and successfully the Ukrainian military fights, Russia will continue its campaign of terror.
Yeah, I know where you're going. I can explain.
Yes.
May
I'm going for the attack arms, basically, because that's the only way to stop this stuff. Like, nothing else will stop it.
Okay, so let's put it this way. You already said in a situation after Ukraine has regained control of its sovereign territory, right? So there are no Russian troops on Ukrainian territory anymore. However, Russians are lobbying missiles and whatever else over the border at Ukrainian cities. That's the framework, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So imagine the situation. You have a sovereign Ukraine that controls all of its rightful territory. Why would at that point, Ukraine not fall under the complete NATO umbrella, right? Why would at that point there not be a handful of US Patriot batteries, US operated Patriot batteries in Ukraine? Why would at that point there not be a couple of F-35 squadrons, US F-35 squadrons in Ukraine? Why would at that point that still be tolerated? Why would at that point there need to be anything but the security framework that we already have in Europe extended to Ukraine?
Yes.
And that would really solve the problem, right? And that's part of it. Part two, what the hell are the Russians still going to be lobbying in 3 months' time? They've already spent almost all of it.
May I respond to this?
Sure.
There were two responses. First of all, how much time will it take? And given that the Russian terrorist army has destroyed 30% of the energy capability of Ukraine, like the energy facilities, they're not destroyed, damaged. That's the official Ukrainian announcement this morning, right? And at this rate, sure, the Ukrainian Air Force will win, but it's going to take, I don't know, half a year, 3 months, I don't know how long. So by the time this NATO, whatever, the F-15 fighters and F-35s are deployed, how much more will have been destroyed? It's 140 million people.
So see, what you're doing now is called moving the goalposts, because I very clearly asked you whether you are framing this question within a situation once Ukraine has already liberated all of its sovereign territories, right? And you are now reframing the question to a different, to a wholly different situation, while pretending you're not reframing the question in a very different situation. That's called moving the goalposts, and I'm just calling this out because I get quite annoyed when people do this and not flag it sufficiently.
Apologies. Yes.
Now, that's a very different question, and that question kind of comes down to a great degree of just how soon leopards are freed and just how much is given to Ukraine, how quickly, right? That is really the metric that determines how quickly Ukraine can kick the Russian invaders out of Ukraine. But that's a very different question from the question you were initially posing.
So why not ATACMS now? Because leopards, I'm just
no
afraid
reason
it's
why
gonna
not.
take long enough.
And who says there aren't ATACMS there already?
That is all I'm asking, basically, because I'm not hearing that. There needs to be retaliatory capability for Ukraine. Retaliatory, not just on its own territory. Retaliation is a must. So yeah, that's.
Andre, may I highlight Yeah, I was just about to say, I put this up in the nest, and I think we were about to discuss this in a little while after yet another cup of coffee. But maybe you want to read it before we discuss it. There's a nice link up there in the nest about from Mick Ryan. General Mick Ryan has been on the program on a regular basis. We sincerely appreciate his candor, sharp and incisive analysis. And the good thing about Mick Ryan is he's not a desk general. He is someone who likes to get, close up to things. And he's been sitting with General Zaluzhny, with President Zelensky more recently, and then went back to the States, where on a regular basis, as a former NATO general, he obviously engenders discussion and debriefed people. I think he is, as a keen observer, that's how I would describe him, made it exceptionally clear what works and how it works. Have a little look-see at the thread. It's worthwhile reading, especially those items which he put up in regard to how we should supply our friends in Ukraine. These are the items, in the thread from 6 onwards to about 10. And there you have it. That is what has to happen. But fortunately, it is already happening. So, and with that, I'll hand it back to Doman.
Yeah, so I'll just go back to, if there aren't any attacks in Ukraine, my cover story really is blown. Decoding.
My perspective on on goalpost 1, when the Russians have left 100% of Ukraine, Ukraine won't be in NATO at that point, but God willing, and this week has moved it closer, I believe there will be bilateral Kiev security treaties with Poland, the US, and the UK.
So basically, you're saying akin to those between Finland and Sweden on one hand, and then US, UK, etc. on the other, right? So basically, kind of like NATO, but without having to go through ratification of all 30 member states.
Exactly, and this is the model which Rasmussen and Yermak published under the Kiev security. If anyone search, I'll post it in the thing when my analysis of that framework. So the whole so that's the formal legal answer. My conception of how this war ends is it's more akin to the Iraq 1991 war than for instance, the 1856 First Crimean War, the Treaty of Paris, or the surrender in 1945 of Japan and Germany. So by that I mean the war. It'll be slightly messier because there isn't a Security Council resolution. However, Muscovy will send. So the Iraq War ended, as I understand, in 1991 with a 23 or 24-page grievance-filled moan, like a world-class moan from Iraq, and in a letter to the Security Council. And it just moaned about everything which had happened to it. So I think we can easily conceptualize Muscovy copying that model, and it didn't actually surrender. However, it was made clear by a senior Iraq diplomat in the United Nations, sotto voce, that they accepted the Security Council resolution. And as we remember now from the 1990s, there was constant scraps, and the UK, every now and again, the UK and the US went up and punished Iraq for breaching the terms of the UN security resolution. And so that's how I see it happening, and but with a different edge, because Ukraine, as we know, extremely good at hybrid warfare. And so when we see in 2 days ago, I think in Belgorod, the electricity pylon or electricity substation blew up, that's the kind of thing we will see continually throughout Russia, Muscovy, excuse me. And so I'm not so worried about that. There could well be a low intensity war, but Ukraine will be able to handle it in a hybrid warfare manner, but with bigger attacks. That God willing, we'll have these Kiev security guarantees, and as soon as Poland, the UK, and US, that's my idea, that once those three sign these bilateral treaties, individual treaties with Ukraine, everyone else will fall into place. Although it'll be a while before Hungary signs it, but it doesn't matter. And then, just as we're seeing with, say, the extension of the rights to refuge to those seeking refuge in the European Union, we basically see this grey zone of EU membership and NATO membership de facto, basically, as we have with these nuclear guarantees at the moment. So I'm personally not so worried about this, because I think Ukraine will be able to handle an insurgency and a hybrid war with Muscovy, because of course hybrid wars are asymmetric, and so it's perfect for that. And there's enough Ukrainians in Muscovy. If Ukraine did do the Dugin assassination again, these are all warning signs which Muscovy seems to forget. But yeah, that would be my answer to that question. But attackant, yeah, get very, very helpful. But hopefully, we won't see that many of those, direct symmetrical responses. But it'll be very confused and messy. And yeah, that's my humble answer.
See, I'm slightly different, but not a lot, really. Because Russia won't want to go into a direct confrontation with the US because they're stupid, but they're not that stupid. I think that there will be a lot less of that than there was in Iraq, and it will be a lot more similar to Korea. But fundamentally, there isn't that big a difference between the two, right? Both end up in very, very low level of activity, kind of prolonged conflict after Russia is expelled from Ukraine, and it makes sufficiently little difference one to the other that that's all right. I care more about the other thing that you said, because as you'll agree, it's a minor difference, and it will exist somewhere on that range of the spectrum, right? Whatever the outcome will be somewhere on that range of the spectrum. My crystal ball is a little bit cloudy this morning. It's hard to pinpoint exactly where in that spectrum it will be. What I think is much more interesting is the discussion about, let's say, the sort of NATO, but more importantly, the EU gray zone, right? How quickly will the formal bits move on, and how quickly will the most reticent of those to ratify go through with ratifications? I think that is going to be a very, very important question, even much more so when it comes to the EU than when it comes to NATO, because as you very correctly pointed out, there's only a handful of countries whose bilateral relations with Ukraine, when it comes on the security front, that truly, genuinely are key and that truly, genuinely matter, right? It doesn't have to be all of them. If Hungary wants to be the dunce at the back of the class, that's fine, honestly. It doesn't really change things. As long as the US, UK, Poland, and a handful of other responsible, thoroughly responsible nations are behind this, but those three are effectively critical, right, when it comes to nuclear capacity, and then Poland logistics capacity on top of that, and let's say sort of a backline, right, for Ukraine to a great degree as well. The rest isn't nearly as important. I think Romania then probably comes next in a very similar role to Poland. But yeah, absolutely. What I was quite heartened to see last week is the first sort of partial customs visa-free regime for Ukraine that came into force last week. That's the Convention on a Common Transit Procedure and Convention on the Simplification of when it comes to cross-border trade between Ukraine and between the European Common Market. And that is going to significantly help with logistics timelines crossing the border. And yes, I know it's boring because it's about boxes and trucks going across the border, but at the end of the day, this stuff really matters, right? Like Colonel Jeff was saying yesterday, logistics really matters, sustainment really matters, expediting logistics really matters. And I like that this happened. I like very much that this will substantially expedite matters when it comes to crossing the border for goods, right? Crossing the border from Ukraine to Poland, from Ukraine to Romania, and vice versa. It's a good sign. I put everyone to sleep, haven't I? Aaron, good morning. Oh, decoding. Good. You have something to say back. I was worried I put you to sleep entirely.
Yeah, I'm quite. I remember I often beat Austria, and I did it again last night, over the head with this quote from Schallenberg in April 2022 that he's against candidate status for the European Union for Ukraine. And as we all know, President Zelensky is a fantastic advocate and campaigner, as indeed are all of the Ukrainian leadership. And there's enough support for EU membership among, important states, including the Baltic states, from the inside, that I think the bigger states are on this accelerator, and it's very annoying for them, or not accelerator, the thing you get in shopping centers. Yeah, the thing, and they know they're being led upon it, and the strategy, if I was in charge of it, I suspect this is the strategy, is basically, as these agreements, these mini agreements, all under the auspices now of the candidature, as well as I think they say they've done 80% of the European Economic Association Agreement. They've implemented it, and the candidate status, so it'll all be under that. And so by the time the question is asked, okay, are they ready? Are we ready to admit them? Basically, substantively, they'll already be part of everywhere, and it would be very difficult for the other countries to say no. And then if they do say no, it doesn't matter so much, because like the Kiev Security Treaty framework, if we're only interested in joining NATO because of the security guarantees, then and the only objection is that we don't want to provide the security guarantees, then they've come up with this brilliantly, clever framework to weave this matrices of bilateral treaties between Ukraine and all of these states, which are also in NATO, so that the objection to admitting them to NATO, because we don't want to give them security guarantees, is annulled, because they've already got them, which will still subsist after they join NATO. They'll still, if NATO votes against this being an armed attack when Muscovy does something bad, then Ukraine will still be able to invoke the guarantee it has with the United States or Poland or Czechia or the United Kingdom. So with the EU membership, yeah, I'm watching it quite closely. I'd love to be involved somehow in helping them get this, but I imagine that I have full confidence they'll plot their way through this in a way very annoying to Germany and France and Austria and perhaps one or two other countries. But yeah, it's interesting. It's like a Zelensky TV series. How's it going to end? Oh, well, we know how it's going to end, but how are they going to get there? Yeah, that's my humble opinion on it.
Thank you, Deacon. And here I'll stress, right? I agree with that. It's much easier when it's on one piece of policy, say security in this case. It's just so much easier to push it through than it is when it comes to much more complicated, much more all-encompassing things such as the European Union, right? Because there they run into conflicts of interest, so to speak, as well. Whereas here, it's really straightforward. It's really plain. those bilaterals can go out immediately, literally at the drop of a hat. Nothing else has to be done. You don't have to wait for anyone else. And yeah, exactly. I completely agree with that. Completely agree with that one. All right. I want to go to Sukhpal because he was jumping up yesterday and he was having some technical difficulties, I think. And then we go to Sour Cherry, Vishnikovsky's Anglophone brother, and then to Aaron after that. Sukhpal.
Yeah, Daman, thank you so much. Daman, just one quick question here. Maybe I've missed out on something, in which case, just pardon me for my ignorance. But in any case, here it goes. Correct me if I am wrong in my understanding, but be it the embassy or a consulate, it is considered as the sovereign part of whichever country that embassy or consulate belongs to. Having said that, in this recent attack in Kyiv, in which various places were bombarded, one of the targets was the German consulate. So, does that make it in any way as an attack on the sovereign, land or territory of Germany or EU in the largest sense? And has there been any kind of reaction from NATO on this?
I will give it a quick go, and then I'll pass it off to Decoding, who's actually a lawyer. My understanding is that an embassy isn't by default sovereign land. Sometimes it is given that status, but in general, it is not. In general, it is still whatever the country it's actually in. However, there's immunity from prosecution to some degree, and you can't send the police in there, some such. It was a separate building associated with the embassy, apparently, that handles the consular affairs. It was basically the visa department of the German embassy in Kiev. There hasn't been much of a response. Is there an automatic response? No. Could this have been taken as a very strong, let's call it a political excuse within Germany? Absolutely yes. Was it? I don't really think so. So it's not sovereign land by default. There aren't automatic triggers. This could have been used appropriately, but it hasn't been nearly to the degree it could have, and that is a political decision. Decoding, what did I get wrong?
No, nothing. I mean, armed attack. So the clause says if there is an armed attack on any of the parties to the treaty, it's open to question what constitutes an armed attack and what constitutes an instance the could have been considered an armed attack. We've had this discussion again, and I'm not going to open it up, but as a lawyer, I'd say if the political will is there to determine the triggering of Article 5, then what happened on Monday to the German consulate would be sufficient, because it doesn't have to be an armed attack on soil. It needs to be an armed attack on the country, and countries are concepts. And if you killed the president of the country in Brazil, that might be, if it was turned out to be Muscovy, you could consider that an armed attack on Germany. And if they had killed Nancy Pelosi or tried to kill her when she went to Taiwan, a similar thing, because certain people could be considered to personify their state and their ally. But as with all law, whether it's in a municipal sense in a country or not, it's not an objective. It's not like 1 + 1. Is the political will to enforce this rule there, and sometimes the act will summon up that political will, because it'll be so heinous. So, for instance, a missile strike on Germany from Muscovy, but other times the political will is there. And say in the case of Kosovo in 1998, the right to protect and there's plenty of causes of action already which Muscovy has breached, which are all of our countries, including India and China, have a duty to. There's a duty to prevent breaches of the laws of war, of persecution, even of the propaganda that we see coming. The public incitement to genocide. And so part of all of our jobs, if we're advocates for Ukraine or for the international rules-based order or for international law, which I consider myself to try to be, is to try and generate that political will so that they perceive reality in such a way that an attack on a consulate in Kyiv cannot be ignored. And I think people on here were discussing, the prediction was it was going to be ignored. But yeah, it'd be great to see the reactions of it. Yeah, so it's there's this great show which is called Berlin Station. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but I highly recommend it. There's 2 seasons of it, and then it got cancelled for some reason. But in it, they imagine, so the second season is basically a Prigozhin type character runs his private army over the border into Estonia. And throughout the series, and in this series, they imagine the Article 5 discussions. I'm not going to ruin it for you, but it's really quite helpful and probably quite typical of what's going to happen if Article 5 is ever triggered. That's why these bilateral security guarantees are so important. That would be my view on it. But if you were asking me if I was the president of the United States, I would have considered that an armed attack on an ally, and I would have been straight on to Schultz, and I would have been told him to stiffen his back and say, right, now we have our cause of action, we're going in. And there will be one day when they step over the line. And it's part of my job and other people's jobs to generate that atmosphere, so that finally, when the will is there, that this magical political will, whether it's to do with Zaporozhye, Enerdar, and one shelling incident or whatever, that we're ready for it, because Kosovo happened overnight. No one, including the Russians and Serbs, saw that coming. And that is what I've been hoping and dreaming and working for since February 24th. Thank you.
Thank you, Rikani. Yeah, exactly. It's down to political will. There's no automatism in this. And it has to be decided on, and it's a shame that it wasn't, taken more seriously. Or maybe it was. Maybe, we'll hear today that the animal rights group MriyaReport has succeeded in freeing the leopards, and the German government has acceded to it because of what the Russians have done in Kyiv on Monday. Who knows? Okay, let's go to Vyshnikovsky, Anglophone brother, and then to Aaron, and then to Pauli. Pauli, if you want to come back to this law stuff, I'm all up for it. I just want to go to Vyshnikovsky first.
Thank you, Doman. As Austria was mentioned, the ghost of Vyshnikovsky was summoned, which is me. I wanted to say that I don't think that Austria in itself has a problem or will have a problem with Ukraine joining the European Union. I think one thing that we just saw recently, which supports that, is if we look at the Austrian presidential selection, those candidates that have been pro-Russian against Ukraine in their stance, they made up about 30% of the voters, and that's kind of what I perceive. Some might disagree in this space. I always got some interesting messages from people who disagreed with me that I misrepresent Austria, so I apologize for this. But in my perception, it's about 30% who are candidates who are rather pro-right-wing and pro-Russian, but the overwhelming majority of Austria at this moment, I think, would have not a single problem with Ukraine joining. And there remains Schallenberg and the party of which he's member of, ÖVP. And unfortunately, I've been a voter of it, and I have to apologize that I voted in the past for this party. But this party, especially the Kurz clique, they had one financier, like Alexander Schütz. You can look him up, Alexander and Eva Schütz. They financed Kurz a lot, and they are also heavily invested in Express, an Austrian propaganda outlet of Russia, so to say. It's a newspaper. It's written EXX, then PRESS. And if you look at it, it's crazy Russian propaganda. If you look what its owner, Richard Schmidt, is posting, it's crazy Russian propaganda. And it's, I think, not a surprise that the investors behind it are behind ÖVP and behind that. So my suspicion is that many in the ÖVP are, like we see with Germany, influenced by Russian money. And I hope that very soon there will be some revealing things on those people who are complicit in helping Russia finance this war. And I think Germany and Austria, they got it coming. I feel it in my urine bladder. I feel there is some big shit coming for them someday soon. And that's on Austria, right? So I don't think that Austria in itself is against it. And I think there is some smart and powerful minds at work in the West that can easily, with some waving some euros or dollars in front of the faces of those who make the decision in Austria, right, to just steer the direction or pressure them with something, you know, like Hungary needs to be pressured. So I have no worry about Austria. I think it's neglectable. And secondly, I wanted to add to what Decoding was talking about, the incident, and then also Sukbal was talking about. So thank you for bringing it up. The incident, or like the attack on the German embassy, it didn't surprise me at all that Germany decided to ignore it. It's sad, but I think NATO has done the utmost to stay out of the conflict ever since it started. Maybe someday in the future we'll learn why NATO tried to stay out for so long, but that's it. I just wanted to bring up a funny idea, and if we are, or when we are through the hands, I would love maybe to get an answer from Decoding, because he seems quite knowledgeable in the topic, or Tim for that matter. We always talked about an off-ramp for Putin. And yesterday I was sitting together with a very intelligent friend discussing Russia a lot. And we were trying to find an off-ramp for Putin. Can it be that when NATO eventually steps in and smashes his army in Ukraine, that this is the off-ramp for Putin? Because then he can say, look, guys, I didn't lose against Ukraine, whom I called incompetent Nazis and drug addicts. I lost against NATO. And because of our incompetent generals, we were just not ready for it. To me, that sounds like some sort of an off-ramp. He could maybe say, hey, we brought Belarus back into our empire. That's an achievement of mine. But I could not win in Ukraine because NATO was involved. If it wasn't NATO, we would have won, but it was an unfair game. Hence, we need to improve. We need to go back and learn. But at least our imperial ambitions have been partially successful because we brought Belarus. Just saying, like, and I would be interested what your opinion on that is.
I think I'll be very quick. Tim, two things. First of all, on this latter one, I don't think NATO has to go in at all. Russia has already created the ghost of NATO in Ukraine, with all of their domestic propaganda talking about 20,000 Navy SEALs commanded by 6 Canadian admirals and the tens of thousands of Romanian whatever troops.
One short interjection, Doman. One short interjection. Would it be maybe good enough if we find a rubber blow-up puppet that we dress up as a NATO general, put it there like the S-300 air defense, like inflated, and say this is the NATO general that was helping Ukraine, and we're good?
The Russians already have Mark Hertling recorded, giving instruction to various people in somewhere in eastern Ukraine. I think I can send you pictures. They're very poorly staged, very poor likeness, but they've already done it. Right? Their domestic propaganda has already set everything up for excusing the inevitable defeat. I think they know it. I think they know they already lost. What they're doing now is they're just trying to kill as many Ukrainians as they can before they're kicked out. But they clearly already know that they've lost, and they're rebalancing their own demographics a little bit to be very cynical. But if you look at all the ridiculous things they're staging, they know they've lost. They're just figuring out exactly what all buckets of things they're going to throw at various walls and see what sticks in the end. But they're already preparing the groundwork for, oh no, it was NATO all along. We just lost to the to the collective free world. And where was China? They didn't come and back us up properly. Now we get to hate on China for a little bit, or some such. As to Austria, I just need to provide the balancing act, because yesterday after I left, there was someone complaining that apparently we hate conservatives here, which I think is really hilarious. But I need to provide the balance that it's not just the Austrian far right, it's also the Austrian far left, KPÖ, the Austrian Communist Party. And I know they're irrelevant in most of Austria, except they're quite relevant in Graz, and Graz is physically close to me. Their last notes on anything to do with Ukraine on their website are from the 11th of March. That's how much they care. And on the 11th of March, they were saying that we have to stop all arms deliveries to Ukraine, because that's only going to make more war. So I just want to say that they're idiots too. That's all I have to say. Vyshniakovsky, do you concur?
I do concur. I've probably been addressed by the same people who are unhappy about bashing on conservatives, but I have to say I'm somewhat maybe a conservative myself. Like, I always voted for ÖVP, and you can beat me for that. I'm sorry. It was a bad choice, but you sometimes in elections vote for the least worst option. I think we're not bashing conservatives in Austria, and I think we're well aware that the left-wing extreme in Austria is also pro-Russian. But like you said, it's KPÖ, and KPÖ is neglectable. It's like point after the comma, right? The only reason why they're successful in Graz is because they did good local politics with helping the little man there. And that was the reason why many non-left people voted for them. But it has nothing to do with communism or far leftism. So I must say, my perception in Austria is that the left, the real left in Austria, which I would say is more comprised of the Green Party and partially of SPÖ, or like SPÖ is hard to put anywhere, I think, but I would call them left as well. The left has not supported Russia as much as did FPÖ and ÖVP. And I think that's really a fair assessment.
Thank you, Vyshniakovsky. I was going to, sorry, Vyshniakovsky's ghost. Are we allowed to call you that, or is that verboten on Twitter because your old account is banned or something?
You can call me Vyshniakovsky. I don't think Twitter's handlers or like bonking crew is listening to the space, if they do, give me back my original account. This account is just a temporary one of my 100 fake accounts which I used. And as soon as I know if my old account gets reinstated or not, I will switch to a proper account that I build up again with the original followers and contacts I had. Yeah, Twitter is really bad. You know why they blocked me? They blocked me because I said to some Russian troll, I said, your Kerch bridge will be bombed again, boomer. I just added the boomer because I know this troll was like presenting a photo of her like as being much younger than she really is, and is very focused on beauty. So I wanted to harass her a bit, and if I'm guilty of something, it's that. Yeah, but that was the sole reason why my account got suspended and deleted, unfortunately. But let's see where it goes. I'll keep bonking Vatniks like all the other fellas in the room. Thank you.
I feel like you're revealing too many NAFO tactics here. You're required to report to Langley immediately for a debrief. Anyway,
there is no
yeah,
Langley and no CIA.
There is no CIA.
It's in
There
Dutchess
is-
County.
Yeah, it's the Culinary Institute of America, or the Courtauld Institute of Art, depending on what. But anyway, yeah, to your point, I mean, as Doman says, they're already saying they're in a war with NATO. You know, you remember that graphic they put out of the jellyfish with Ukraine as its head, and then the rest of its head was kind of the UK, Poland, and the US, and then there were all of these other NATO countries behind it. You know, they've already claimed that they've destroyed Abrams tanks. They've already claimed that there's US and British and Canadian special forces all over the place. So yeah, that ship kind of sailed. On the politics thing, we get accused of political biases, and it tends to come from people who have a fairly hardline political conviction themselves, right? So they see the way some co-hosts here generally frame things, and they see that, oh, right, you're a horrible right-wing bastard, which in my case is actually true. That is a fair criticism. But yeah, we try to keep our political views to ourselves, and we try to keep things balanced and Ukraine focused. Do you try to do that, Doman? I think you do. I have no idea what your politics are.
Then I'm doing a good job. Aaron.
Yeah, good morning. Don't worry, you're not the only person to have your main account suspended. I did by saying war Gonzo should be shot as a war criminal, but there we go. Apparently that wasn't for Twitter. So just going to back to Monday with the missile strike. I think I think their air defense got a bit overwhelmed there. But the fact they shot 46 cruise missiles down, and I think it's about 20 yesterday, I think they're doing quite well on that front. Once they get NASAMS and IRIS-Ts, and I think they got a couple of missile systems coming from Spain, France, Germany, etc. I think once they get them integrated, you won't see a kind of attack like they did Monday. I think Russia cruise missile won't be as effective.
And your question is, does Russia have the capacity to, do this many times again? Because you're right, Ukrainian air defense has got somewhat overwhelmed because it's hard to track so many things all at once. However, they would also need to have the ability to send so many all at once again, and that's a non-trivial thing to be doing. And so yesterday they sent about a quarter as many, and a much greater proportion of those got shot down for obvious reasons, because the air defenses didn't get overwhelmed as much, right? And there is going to only be more air defense capacity, as you noted. If anyone wants to see an excellent new development, go to the timeline of our friend Olga from Odessa, Oscar Domesticated. You can go to like the second or third tweet down on mine as well, because I retweeted it. It's excellent. There is a new app. There's a new app in Ukraine that people can download and say, cruise missile or a UAV has just flown over my head. I am here. This is when it happened, and this way it can help kind of through crowdsourcing, help with identification of these low flying, hard to detect by radar threats for Ukraine. And I think that's really fantastic as well. I just want to know that.
That's a brilliant little thing, isn't it? Really, that they can pinpoint the path. Then really.
Well, exactly, right? You get a couple of reports, and then something that you might dismiss on the radar as a bird, you can think, oh, yeah, maybe that's it as well. I think it's fantastic. It's really great to hear it. And I'm just getting a note from someone else from the west of England, Aaron, that it's great to hear a Bristolian on the space. Except I think you're not actually from the city of Bristol. I think you're from a different ceremonial county.
That's a bit of offence to me. I'm not Bristolian.
Very good.
I'm not a Janner, sorry.
Thank you, Aaron. Pauli, you're up next.
All right, thank you, Domin. Always great to see the A team here. Just Mr. T is missing. Do you know who's Mr. T in this?
He goes by Tim.
No. Mr. T is
I know.
and I'm not getting on any planes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think Decoding presented all the relevant matters in the legal question quite clearly. I think this question is really important, and if I have to predict something in the following weeks and months, we will see more aggression from Russians in EU countries. So I think this question will, it will come again. So I will try to present a few of the general theories how lawyers and attorneys see this question. So the question was that is the attack a missile attack towards German consulate in Kiev? Does that constitute as a attack towards Germany as a country? So in general, globally, when we talk about jurisdiction, we usually have the state or a country which applies its own national law. That's number one. And then in the international waters and international airspace, you might also apply a national law, but then also you would apply international agreements on airspace and high seas, but you would also secondarily apply the law of the flag. And I think this concept is something that not everyone is familiar with. So if a vessel, let's say an aircraft or a ship, runs under a certain flag, it is possible to apply the law of the flag. Let's say it would be a vessel under a Finnish flag. It is then possible to apply Finnish jurisdiction and Finnish law in the context that any actions taken inside or on the vessel would be analyzed and then construed based on the Finnish law. And I argue that you could also apply the same analogy and reasoning to an embassy or consulate if there is the political will that Decoding justifiably said in his submission. So I think the main point is that if you have an embassy or a consulate, then you can reason and the specific country can reason that this territory or location can be considered as a part of the home country, and then anyone who enters in the building or territory is subject to the laws of the country whose flag flies there. And for example, in Finland, in Helsinki, when there's a US embassy, in most cases, it is you can expect that the U.S. federal law will be applied to anything that happens in the embassy. But then, of course, if there are, let's say, crimes happening, then also Finnish legal system will take a hold to any matters happening there. And then, lastly, almost all civilized countries offer diplomatic immunity and diplomatic services and protection to any embassy and consulates. So I think in similar scenarios, in my opinion, it is possible that in Kiev, actually, Ukraine could make a statement that this was an attack against Germany and we condemn this attack. And then also Germany, if Scholz would have balls, he could also say that, all right, we constitute that this was actually an attack against Germany, and we will make some arrangement to free certain animals to their natural environment. That's leopard.
Exactly, right. It's all about political will, just like Decoding said as well. It's all about there are precedents, there are tools in the toolbox, but you have to decide to actually use them, right? And you have to actually decide to say, right, we're gonna, in response to this, we're going to invoke such and such thing, and with this, we are going to rationalize our actions, right? Because that's really what law is a lot of the time, because it is kind of fuzzy. It is down to decisions. It's not black and white. It's not like there are very few binary decisions. There are very few ultimatisms, and a lot of these things have to be decided to be acted on, right? Maybe I'm denigrating your your profession a little bit, but I think that's something that's often kind of forgotten when it comes to thinking about law. That a lot of it still comes simply down to willingness to act on something, and rather than anything being really automatic.
Yes, 100%. And it's about interpretation, how the officials interpret the acts. That's basically in a nutshell.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Pauli. So, in other words, to summarize, right, what you've explained is the German government on the back of this has a lot of tools that they can very easily, legitimately use. It's down to them to decide whether they're going to use them to, kind of like a carrot cake with a file inside, to get those leopards out of their cages, or they're not. And it's really down to them. It's really down to the political will. It's really down to their decision, as opposed to anything that's really black and white and automatic. Well, thank you very much, Pauli. Knut, have you baked the carrot cake yet? Knut?
No. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, I was just a colleague tried to call me. This work keeps interrupting from interesting thing. And I haven't baked carrot cake yet. But I have a question, and this embassy thing is bothering me somehow a lot, because I've even written to the foreign ministry, because maybe Axel has some updates on that. I could not find any public acknowledgement from our government that our embassy was even hit. So I was looking through all the media. I was asking friends on Facebook and everywhere. And in some media outlet, I don't know if it was a newspaper or a TV station, they said it was a consulate, which is nonsense. I've been to the German embassy in Kiev. It's like, right doors, embassy, left doors, the visa center. It's the same building, or it's attached to each other. So, but there has not been any public acknowledgement of that. And normally, like when some German comedian writes a bad song about Erdogan, the German ambassador in Ankara has to visit personally there and attend there. So, and no Russian ambassador had to appear anywhere yesterday in Berlin, as far as I know. Or are they just waiting for the conference today to do it all in one thing? So it's a bit strange, because we don't get any information here in Germany about that. And You hardly read anything about it that it was even hit. So with most people I talk to, they're very surprised when I tell them.
Sorry, I was waiting to see if Axel wanted to jump in on this because I kind of wanted to hear from him on it. That is not. Is it surprising? It's shocking. I don't know if it's surprising. It's definitely shocking that it wasn't even acknowledged. Did you read any articles in newspapers saying something along the lines of, German embassy hit, German Foreign Office unavailable for comment? Anything along those lines?
No, even so. I saw an interview with Miss Baerbock, and she acknowledged it was horrible what happened yesterday, and we should deliver. I mean, the Green Party and the Liberals, they are all in for delivering Leopards anyways, and they said we should deliver even more air defense and air defense.
Yeah, they're for animal rights, right?
Yeah, and delivering more IRIS-Ts and all this stuff for air defense, but there was no mentioning of the German embassy, and I'm just. So, is there any pictures? Did you see anything in Ukrainian press that the German embassy was hit? Or was it just, I don't want to call it collateral, but was it, so I don't know what happened there. That's my, I'm still searching for confirmation what was exactly hit.
So the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry, I'll be on this coming up as well. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry, the spokesman for the